In this video, I'm going to be looking at Apache by The Shadows. Now, regular viewers will know that I do quite often like to look at some quite niche things on this channel, but that's certainly not all that I'm about, and I do find it quite interesting sometimes to look at some more well-worn stuff and to see if there's anything else that is left to be said. And is there anything left to be said about Apache? I don't know, I'm hoping there is. And the idea here is I want to give you the ultimate Apache lesson. So it's going to be thorough and I hope reliable. There's going to be a lot of detail, so I'm going to be splitting this into two separate parts. And I'm of course going to be looking at the guitar parts, so both the acoustic strummed part and the electric lead part. I want to do a bit of a theoretical analysis of the chords and the harmony of this tune. And I also want to talk a little bit about the Hank Marvin sound, the kind of gear that he uses and how to get that sound with gear that you might have at your disposal. So let me begin by playing through the entire tune and then we'll start breaking it down. So there we go. This is undoubtedly one of the great guitar instrumental classics. But these days I think it can be quite hard to appreciate what an influential, important and I would say quite radical guitar player Hank Marvin was and is. And you listen to some Shadows stuff and yes, it can be slightly middle of the road, but at their best the Shadows wrote and performed amazing atmospheric and powerful music. And Hank Marvin was clearly a big influence on most of the British guitar greats, so people like Jimmy Page, Beck and Clapton. And you could possibly argue that his influence went a lot deeper than that, and it might be pushing it a bit to trace a line from Hank Marvin through to shoegaze and to Kevin Shields, but I don't think it's that much of a stretch, to be honest. If you listen to his technique, his use of vibrato and effects, you could definitely make that argument, I think. Now, there have been loads of versions of this track, but the Shadows recording, which came out in 1960, is probably the most famous and I would say the best recording of this tune. but they didn't actually write it. It was written by a British songwriter called Jerry Lorden, and in fact it was first recorded by Bert Weedon in the same year, 1960. So Bert Weedon of Play in a Day fame, and I hadn't actually heard that recording till this week, and I checked it out, and it's well worth a listen. It's quite fun. It's got some crazy jazz flute stuff going on, which is pretty cool. Anyway, let's get down to business. I'm going to begin by looking at the rhythm guitar stuff. And I know the temptation with this one is to get onto the exciting lead stuff, but I always think it's a good idea to understand the chords that you're playing over as a lead guitar player. It's much better for you as a musician to think in those terms. So let's take a look at the chords, then we'll get onto the lead stuff after that. I want to start by looking at the strummed acoustic rhythm part, and if you actually take the time to listen to it properly, it's very nicely done, and it must be a bit of a thankless task backing up Hank Marvin on acoustic guitar during Apache, but I think Bruce Welch does an excellent job, and it's really solid and it's really groovy. And I think if you're more of a beginner and you're looking for songs to practice your strumming and playing in time, then this would be an excellent one to look at. Now, we're in the key of A minor for this one, but there are a couple of nice non-diatonic things happening in this tune as well, and that's just a fancy way of saying that there are notes and chords in there which don't belong to the key, which don't belong to the A natural minor scale. So I'm going to be pointing those out as they crop up. Now, the mood of the song is set up right at the start with the acoustic guitar playing an A minor chord going to a D chord. So just playing standard open position chords here, and perhaps arpeggiating these chords slightly, just dragging the pick across the strings, letting it hang for 4 beats, and then going to D. So interesting harmony straight away. The A minor chord, that's clearly the 1 chord in the key of A minor, but then we've got a D major chord, and your music theory tells you that the 4 chord in the key of A minor, it should be a D minor chord, but here we've flipped the quality from minor to major and I've got a D major chord, which creates a slightly unexpected sound. I suppose it's quite a common sound as well, and it's totally allowed to do that. I mean, one way of thinking about this might be you can just flip the expected quality of a chord from minor to major or major to minor. That's totally allowed when you're writing a song. And another way of thinking about it is it's an example of modal interchange or modal mixture. And that's another fancy term which really just means you're borrowing chords from related scales or keys. Often when people talk about modal interchange, it's about related major and minor scales, and specifically parallel major and minor scales, so scales starting from the same note. So you might use chords from A major and A minor and kind of flip between those two scales. But here you can see this D chord, I think, as coming from the related Dorian mode. So you can think about the A minor scale, the A Aeolian mode to give it its modal name, and then the A Dorian scale or A Dorian mode. And in the A minor scale, you've got the notes from a D minor chord. In the A Dorian mode, you've got that F sharp in there, so you can play a D chord. So in a sense, you can think of the opening theme to Apache as having a kind of Dorian mode theme, and you've got that F sharp in this D major chord. You've also got that F sharp there in the melody to the tune as well. Let's move on to the A section, or the main theme of the tune, and the acoustic part goes like this. So once again, we're moving from A minor to D major, and it's setting up this nice strumming pattern here. And it's a very distinctive groove. I'm not sure if this particular groove has a name, this drum fill. There might well be a name for it, but I can't think what it might be. But you certainly hear it in quite a number of different songs. I just want to take you through the strumming pattern here, which is quite an interesting one. So it's based on an 8-note all downstroke rhythm with your strumming hand. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... But you can hear that there are occasionally upstrokes in there as well, and specifically at the end of beat 1 we've got 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and... So that's going to be our strumming pattern. Down, down, up, down, 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 down. And there are other ways you could strum this particular rhythm. I suppose you could try it with down upstroke, but for me that feels quite awkward, and if you do it with alternate strokes of the pick, you're kind of stranded on an upstroke when the riff comes round to repeat itself in the second bar. It just doesn't flow quite so well, so I'm not sure how Bruce Welch does it, but it feels right to me to go with primarily all downstrokes. That's giving you the eighth note underlying rhythm, and then you can just fill in some upstroke 16th notes, and it generally happens at the end of beat 1. And if you're a beginner, even perhaps if you're more of an intermediate player, that rhythm pattern can be potentially quite tricky. It's certainly tricky to play it as solidly as Bruce Welch does. So you just want to concentrate on good basic strumming technique, and the main thing for me is just staying relaxed in your strumming hand, so really loose. And for me the strumming motion is a combination of elbow, forearm, and a little bit of wrist as well. It's just staying totally relaxed, and that will allow you to get those quick 16th notes in there, and it will also mean that you've got the stamina and the staying power to play that rhythm for the entire 3-minute track. And you also might like to play that with a metronome as well. Just make sure you're really in time. I can play it along with my backing track if you'd like to. Another important element to this, if you really want to nail the feel of this one, is to include some accents in there as well. And accents are something that aren't talked about enough, I don't think, and it really is a good way of just bringing some life into your rhythm playing. So for this particular strumming pattern, I'm hearing the accents as something like this. I'm just going to do this with muted strings just so you can really hear the accents. But so you can hear it's ba 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 ba. So I don't know what part of the beat that is. It's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So it's really 1, the and of 2 and 4 is where you're just playing a bit harder and accenting the strings. You don't have to overdo that, but just a little bit of that accent in there, it's really going to make the part come to life. So that's the start of the A section. We've got A minor, D, 2 bars of A minor, then we repeat that, and then we've got this. So we're essentially taking everything up a fourth. We're now going to D minor, so this is the 4 chord in the key, the expected 4 chord in the key. We've got D minor, and that's going to G, and then back to D minor. So if you think about it, it's the same as the opening chords, A minor to D, but taken up a fourth. And the melody to the tune, that's transposed up a fourth as well. So we've gone from this up to this, and the chords go with it. So we've now got D minor and G. Now listening closely to the recording, the specific voicings of these chords seem to be like this, and the D minor's like this, not as you might expect like this. This is the standard open position beginner D minor chord. It sounds to me like Bruce Welch is playing this D minor chord. Technically it's an inversion of D minor, so that the notes we've got here, just going from the 4th string, we've got fret 3, fret 2, fret 3, and then fret 1. I think this is a really nice sounding D minor chord. I think it's preferable to my ears to this open D minor chord. And we've actually got the third, or the minor third, in the bass here. So, and then I'm not hearing an open position G here, I'm hearing more of this kind of sound. So again, from the 4th string, frets 5, 4, 3 and 3. And that's quite a smooth change from this D minor shape. So it could be that there are some lower notes in that G voicing. You could play that D note there, or perhaps a full bar chord if you want to, but the smoothest change I think is doing this. then we're back to the A minor to D. And that's the A section, or the main theme of the tune. Let's move on to the next bit of the tune, and you could call this the B section if you like, and it's the galloping bit. This is where Hank is going. And the rhythm guitar is really going along with that same rhythm. So here we're heading to an F chord, and this chord does belong to the key. It's the 6th chord in the key, or it's built off the flat 6th degree of the A natural minor scale. So that's an F chord, and I'm playing it like this. So from the 5th string, I've just got frets 3, 3, 2, 1, and 1. So it's kind of a lazy bar chord. I'm not actually barring my first finger all the way across. You could do if you wanted to, or you could play that low bass note with your thumb. I'm not really hearing that on the recording, so I'm playing it like this, and it seems to kind of interface with those open chords a little bit more easily than switching between bar chords and open chords, which can sometimes be a bit clumsy, I think. So this is what I'm doing here. I've got the F chord, and the rhythm is that galloping rhythm. So and that's maintained for a couple of bars. So we've just got that 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a, so down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. And once again, it's really important to stay relaxed if you're going to play this smoothly and groovily at quite a fast tempo. So then we're back to the A minor chord and to the previous strumming pattern. So then we're just repeating that. So F, A minor. So that's the B section. Next we've got what I'm going to call a bridge section, and this is where the lead guitar goes. And the rhythm guitar is playing something like this. We're starting off on an F chord. This is the same voicing that I was using earlier, that kind of lazy bar shape. We've got an F going to a G with the same strumming pattern as the A section. Then we're going to a C chord, and the strumming pattern is this. So we've actually just got 2 beats on the C chord here before we go to the A minor. So it's kind of the same strumming pattern, but then we reset the strumming pattern when going to the A minor. This is something to watch out for, that slightly unexpected 2 beats on the C chord, and unless you're paying attention you can get lost at this point, I think. So just one more time, we've got 4 beats on the F, 4 beats on G, 2 beats on C, and then to A minor. And again, when we're going from the C to the A minor, the strumming pattern is like this. So A minor, it's like we're resetting the strumming pattern, and this is beats 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've got another bar of A minor from the start of the strumming pattern. I hope I'm not overcomplicating this. You could probably just listen to it and pick it up, but that's what I'm hearing on the record. And then we're going round again. So F, G, and the second time we're just staying on C for 2 whole bars. First I thought it was a C7 chord in the second bar there, and that certainly sounds good. You might want to do that, but I'm not hearing that in the acoustic part. I think you have got that B flat note played in in the lead guitar part, but not on the acoustic part. But that could sound cool if you wanted to add that in. So 1 bar of C, 1 bar of C7. Then we're back to the F again. That's the same as the first part of the bridge section. So kind of got 3 sections to the bridge there. And if I put all of that together, that's the entire bridge. For those of you who are interested in a quick harmonic analysis of this bridge section, let me just explain what's going on here. And these 3 chords are once again taken from the key of A minor. So we've got the F chord, which, as I said earlier, that's the flat 6 chord built off of the 6th note of the A natural minor scale, which is a flat 6 interval. And it's going to the flat 7 chord, which is G. And that's going to the C chord. Once again, this chord is diatonic. It's off of the flat 3rd of the A minor scale. So F, G, C. Another way of thinking about it is we're going to the relative major key, the key of C major. And these chords are just the 4, 5 and 1 chords in the key of C major. Feels like that section is lifting, it's going to the relative major, but there's always that pull back to the minor. It doesn't stay on the C major chord, it just goes straight back to that minor chord. So it's interesting, it kind of lifts and then goes back down again. And then in the middle part of the bridge, as I said, there's that C7 chord that's hinted at, and that's a non-diatonic chord. There's that B flat note in there, and what that is, it's just a secondary dominant chord really. That chord is leading us back to the F, so you could describe that as being the 5 chord of the 4 chord if you're thinking C major, so the 5 of 4, or it's the 5 of the flat 6 chord if you're thinking in terms of the minor key. It's another good way of adding a bit of harmonic interest to a chord progression, just playing a dominant 7th chord that is not the dominant chord in the key, not the 5 chord, it's the 5 chord of another chord in the key. Then we've got another A section, but this time the band are playing these rhythmic accents. So we've got just still A minor and D, but we're playing these chords quite short and in this particular rhythm. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So you want to make sure obviously that you're tight rhythmically, and also that you're keeping those chords nice and short. So once you've played a chord, you're going to be releasing pressure with your fretting hand, and you probably also want to be touching the strings with your strumming hand as well, just to keep those open strings under control. So and that's more or less it. I think then it's just a question of repeating sections that we've already had. So I think there's another bridge section, there's another galloping section, and then at the end of the tune there's kind of a re-intro where you're just playing the long strummed chords. So have a go at getting this strummed part together. I know it's not the glamour element of this tune, but I think it's a really good strumming exercise, and it would be a really good way of getting your strumming technique in shape, and you just want to focus on being relaxed and being really in time and rock solid. So I want to leave it there for part 1, and I hope to see you in part 2 when we're going to be looking at what I guess is the more exciting and glamorous stuff, the lead guitar part. But I do thoroughly believe that it's important to understand the chords and the harmony and the structure of a piece like this before you get into that stuff. And that way you'll have a much deeper understanding of what's going on, and it'll be much better for you as a musician. So hope you enjoy putting this rhythm guitar stuff together. As usual, backing track tab is going to be up on my Patreon page, and I'll see you in part 2.